What's up, everyone? In this video, I'm going to be cooking a meal and I'm going to be talking about heartbreak and why it's probably the best thing that ever happened to me, and it's probably the best thing that will ever happen to you. So, I'm going to be having eggs. I just went on a run today with one of my friends who um, just is going through a breakup. He's not quite heartbroken, I'd say, but it made me think of sort of my sort of experience that I had with a girl that I dated that I kind of threw myself at, and it resulted in me kind of being in this overly dependent relationship that ended up kind of sucking the life force out of me, and it made life very hard for a very long time. I felt like I wasn't good enough for her. I felt like there was always something bad that was going to happen. There was kind of this like inner gut feeling that was just like always, I called it evil butterflies. It's like butterflies in your stomach, but they're evil. And I kind of had that all the time. I don't know if I was latching onto this sort of idea that maybe she didn't like me and I was having to come to grips with that. Maybe that was just my own inner feelings. But ultimately, she did end up telling me that she didn't like me as much as I liked her, at least, which I think is pretty common, especially when you're sort of dependent or codependent upon someone else, which I most certainly was. And the reason why I think heartbreak is one of the best things that ever could happen is because it teaches you a lot of things about yourself. I mean, a lot of it's, this yearning for attachment that you once had, but I think a lot of my heartbreak involved having to face the facts about my own life. The fact that maybe I really wasn't where I wanted to be in life. Not necessarily that I'm good enough, because that's sort of entirely dependent on what people think about circumstances, if that makes sense. Good enough is kind of subjective, is what I mean to say. But it allowed me to kind of come to grips with the fact that, in this life, no matter how dependent you get on someone else, no matter how much you feel like you can lean on someone else, it is still ultimately you. We are born alone and we're going to die alone, and you're always alone by yourself every night, even if you're next to someone. And I don't think that's a bad thing by any means, but it's important to realize that, at least in my experience, that you are one, and another person is another person. They are not a part of you. And that's sort of what marriage is supposed to represent, is the combining of souls, I think. But I was never married. I just had a really bad breakup when I was about 16. But before I had this breakup, I smoked a lot of weed. I indulged in a lot of things that were ultimately not good for me. And because I had this woman in my life who I wanted to impress and I wanted to be, I suppose you could say, a leader for, all of those things that I did made me insecure. And I'd even argue that that's kind of the role of a woman when it comes to a I suppose you could say heterosexual relationship. In the Bible, and I'm not a huge religion preacher, like I'm not religious, I just am kind of a student to the book of gospel and stuff like that. But the sin of Adam is kind of that he eats the apple from the tree of good and evil, and he blames it on Eve. He's like, well, she told me to do it. And then also, later in the story, it's kind of been described that like they realize that they're naked the second they buy into the knowledge of good and evil. And I think that kind of symbolically represents that women, kind of their role in a heterosexual relationship is to make you feel sort of self-conscious. I mean, I'm sure you've noticed that the second you get into a relationship, there's these things that sort of pop up that you're not really used to feeling. There's this one habit that you do that you're fine with, but then now if she was to see you doing that, you're like, damn, that's not how I want to be living. And so I think that's a great part about the relationship, but especially when you get out of a relationship and you kind of see how much of a disservice you had been doing to yourself by being with this person, or by giving too much up to a person, or putting all of this into someone else rather than putting it into yourself. And I like to believe in this law. It's sort of called the law of compensation, where it's basically like every bad thing you get to, every bad thing you go through has an equal or greater positive. And if I think back to before I was in the relationship that really shattered my heart when I was about 16 or something, my life wasn't enjoyable. You know, I was eating unhealthy. I did not enjoy what I was doing. And now that I think back, you know, it's about 3 years now since I really got my heart broken. I am proud of the life that I live. I coach people to developing better habits and for helping them to kind of live out their potential in terms of having better health and things like that. And that's more fulfilling than any school I ever went through, any other thing I was partaking in, any drug I ever smoked, you know, any weed I ever smoked. It feels so much better to actually be helping people in my life rather than to just kind of drift through every day and kind of living selfishly for myself, you know. And I think being shown that, you know, I really am alone in this world showed me that I really needed to actually go for the things that I wanted in life. And I think that is a lesson that heartbreak teaches a lot of people, is that there's so many lessons that you go through with every bad heartbreak that you have. And there's also the fruit of whatever is on the opposite side of you undergoing this pain, if that makes sense. And that's something that really has done me well, I'd say. A very important lesson I learned from the heartbreak that I went through. I also don't consider myself a master. You know, I certainly have sort of deep-rooted issues of feeling like I'm not good enough, and they kind of manifested in the relationship that I was in, where I kind of acted in accordance to how my brain thought I was. So I believe I acted like I wasn't enough, and it kind of became like a self-fulfilling prophecy, which is an interesting concept to think about in and of itself. But yeah, I mean, if you're going through heartbreak, you know, you need to realize that there is something so much better on the other side. And the gift that I got taught from my super codependent relationship that absolutely shattered my heart was that you'll be all right. Like, no matter what happens, you'll be all right. And that is one of the most important lessons you can learn, I think, especially concerning heartbreak. You know, it's like, it really sucks that you don't have this person around who you can depend on and you love very much. But also you kind of learn what you're made of, you know? It's like, I'm not currently in a relationship. Like I've had a few relationships since then. And the ability to get out of them when it's something that doesn't line up with my values or what I see as my overall purpose, which is to help people get in shape, coach them to live a better life, stuff like that. You know, if I'm talking to a girl and she doesn't want to get out of bed, you know, I'm not going to stay with her because I feel like I can't get anything better, because I built that discipline into myself to show myself what I'm made of. And that's a super important lesson to learn also is, again, there's plenty of other fish in the sea. I don't think there's such thing as the perfect wife or the perfect girlfriend either, but you're certainly not going to find them if you stick with someone that treats you like shit, right? And kind of in the case of one of my homeboys, like, he had entirely opposing views with her. He's very left-leaning, she was very right-leaning. Not that I believe in any of that. Like, I think I think the concept of right and left is just propaganda instilled by the U.S. government to keep people under control, but that's besides the point. But if you're going to be with someone and your views don't align, don't be with them. Like we kind of are genetically predisposed to finding the first girl and getting with them. Like I'm reading a book right now that's called The Ape That Understood the Universe, and it talks about how the role of humans is for the genes within them to carry on offspring, right? And with that comes you kind of throwing yourself at any girl that allows you to throw yourself at them. And now we live in an age where there's 8 billion people on the planet. Like there's a girl somewhere that's probably better than the one that's in your hometown. You know what I'm saying? And it's important to realize that as well, is like once you have all this heartbreak, once you start putting this energy into yourself instead of into somebody else, you have all this energy you can put into getting stronger, getting bigger, eating healthier, doing things for yourself, taking care of your own family, taking care of the things that matter to you, rather than all this other person's problems and what they got going on. You're able to build yourself up. You kind of start holding your head a little higher. You kind of start being like, I'm kind of this shit. And don't be arrogant. Don't be cocky with it. But the ability to turn down someone who is in your life rather than kind of squeezing up to what you think they want you to be, which isn't you, that is a great gift that I learned from heartbreak, and I hope that many of you have learned from heartbreak as well, is like, dude, it's not that serious. Like, it really hurts. Like, I kind of just think about it as in terms of the chemicals. Like, there was this girl I messed around with for a little bit. We had absolutely nothing in common, and we knew that. But we were involved with each other, and I kind of was just like, dude, this is just oxytocin kind of fucking with my brain. Like, we both knew, like, this is never going to go anywhere. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes it's not the worst thing to realize that. When you're young, you're insecure, you think that you can't find anything better. And so you put up with this shit that's just like not right for you whatsoever. Now, I do think that social media has completely altered our view of how we view other people in regards to, like, dudes think that they have to have $1 million to get a girlfriend that's worthy of something, and girls think that they can have anything that they want and that they deserve princess treatment, which then again, that's probably not true either. Like, both of that is probably completely obscured from how reality actually is, but social media just kind of makes you interpret it that way. But regardless, constantly seeing an influx of the most attractive people on earth is not good for your psyche. It absolutely cannot be. And that's something to realize too. With the relationship, there's going to be compromises that come and go, right? But there's also some point when it's like, you got to recognize the sunk cost fallacy for what it is. Let's say you got like an old ass car that you keep throwing money at. Eventually you spent so much money on that old car, you could have just bought a new one and there'd be less problems. That's basically the sunk cost fallacy. It's like you put so much into it that your commitment to it becomes greater. And that's a problem that heartbreak kind of breaks, which is a good thing because it breaks that chain and it's like, dude, this isn't working. This isn't, too much life is being spent on this. This isn't worth it. And that's something that's also super important to realize. I don't know shit, but what I do know is that heartbreak was the best thing that ever happened to me. Throwing everything at this girl who I thought I loved just for her to find some other dude in the next week was the most demasculating, worst possible feeling I could have felt. Ever. Worst feeling I ever felt in my life. But I lived. And she's happier now. Good for her. And that's also something that heartbreak teaches you, is it's like, dude, this is just another person. Like, they didn't do you wrong. They were just living their life. And that's kind of the key to also getting over that resentment that heartbreak builds as well. Eggs are about done. But if you're a young man going through heartbreak, and you're wanting to get in shape, I will help you, because that's exactly what I did. Was I got heartbroken, I tried to spite her. I was like, oh, fuck this bitch. And I got in shape. And now I just am in shape and it feels good. Like, it feels good. Like, it feels good to know that you're putting the work in every day and you carry yourself a little higher. You know your worth. You instill worth into yourself and you become worth something. You know it though. Like, it's worth that you know exists. And that is the most important part, I think, of getting in shape. It's not to spite your ex-girlfriend, because, bro, if she broke up with you and you feel like she didn't care about you, she probably doesn't care that you're spiting her and getting ripped. And that was something I had to face, because I was spiteful. I was like, I'd show up to class every day with the freshest fits on. I'd be like, oh, fuck you, bitch. And like, I didn't actually do that, but it was basically a middle finger to her. And she probably just thought I looked like a fool, honestly. Which is kind of funny when I think back to it. But what else are you going to do but go to the gym when you get heartbroken? Because you have all this extra time, all this extra energy, because you don't have to worry about what your girl's doing or worry about texting her back in some quick response or worry about the next month anniversary present. You have all this energy, bro. And if you put that into the weights, you put that into some physical fitness, you put that heartbreak energy you transmute it into something like getting in shape. That is a lot of energy, bro. That is a lot. And that is where that law of compensation comes in. You know what I'm saying? That is where that super low turns into something that's super, super high. Because in the effort of you trying to cope with feeling like you're worthless and feeling like they moved on, like you were nothing, feeling like they never loved you, feeling like you weren't good enough, feeling like everything in your life is going to shit. And then you just put that into one singular focus, and it's, I'm going to get fucking jacked. That is like the most amount, like the amount of good you can create from that heartbreak pain is the thing that makes heartbreak so great. And I'm not avidly a believer in some man in the sky. I believe in God. I don't think it's this exoteric definition of a dude in the sky, personally. But I think it helps you the most to view every circumstance as something that's trying to teach you something. Whether it's the universe, whether it's Yahweh, whether it's God, whether it's whatever. And you need to meditate on the fact that that heartbreak is teaching you something. And that is why heartbreak is the best thing that a young man could ever go through. Is because, or woman, it teaches you things that you didn't know about yourself, and it gives you the energy to change it. And that is what is so great about something like going through heartbreak. I'm going to eat these eggs. By the way, boys, this apple, super good. But check this out. Chipotle Tabasco, this stuff is banging. My absolute favorite hot sauce. These are my grandpa's crossword puzzles right here. But that's the best thing, dude, is especially putting it towards something that will benefit the future version of yourself, you know? I think a lot of men especially put their girlfriends before their own purpose. And I feel like the second you do that, like, you're cooked. Like, if y'all are fully committed to each other and you know that, you know, there's this deep inner knowing that y'all are, like, perfect for each other. You're getting married. You guys are both eye to eye on everything. Then maybe dedicate your life to that relationship. But, bro, what I had to come to find out was that you can be replaced like that, bro. And personally, if you don't have something of value, and this is just something that I learned, if you don't have something of value, then you will easily be replaced with something better. You know? Think about like a one-of-one McLaren or something. They'll be going for like $15 million. But the McLarens, where they're kind of mass producing them, they only go for like 300,000, stuff like that. And yeah, it's great, but if you crash that McLaren, that $15 million one, bro, it's gone forever. You're going to be thinking, damn, bro, I wish that I was more careful with that car. Whereas if you have a McLaren that's $300,000 and you crash it, you're going to be like, well, insurance will cover it. I'll get another one, whatever. And I don't think relationships are exactly transactional, but I do think that humans have reasoning that sort of coasts over many other things. And I think if you're not a dude who has something of value, whether it's a super in-shape physique, whether it's just super developed social skills, something along the lines of that, super in-shape body, a lot of money, stuff like that, you'll easily be replaced. And we'd like to believe in this insight of unconditional love, but what I've come to find out is that the only unconditional love you're going to get is from your parents. And some people don't even get that. And I think it's foolish to assume that you can be a bum and you'll get to keep a woman who you perceive as more valuable than yourself, if that makes sense. I mean, if you know that the woman you're with is super gorgeous and beautiful, and you know you're just not meeting the mark, you're cooked. Or you know you're not meeting the mark, but you're just insecure about it instead of doing something about it. You're cooked. And that was something I had to find out, dude. I had nothing of value at all. I mean, I wasn't in shape. I was a stoner. I had barely any money. Still live with my parents. I mean, I still do now, but not for long. Had no instilled discipline, had no skills, had no even future direction that seemed pliable, that's something she could depend on, if that makes sense. Like, I heard a podcast once, and it was like the number one thing that women will see in like a man that they find valuable is not a good physique because he's ripped and women are like, oh, you're so ripped, like how dudes will be with some girls. But it's that he has the ability to be consistent with something. He has the ability to be disciplined towards something. And that can yield, again, as I said earlier, your genes, your natural selection's role is for your genes to replicate. That shows an ability for your genes to be able to be carried on to the next generation, because he'll have the ability to take care of a child. If you can take care of yourself, you can take care of a child. And that's also the importance of kind of getting in shape and stuff like that, is when you instill all of this stuff into yourself, all of this, building of yourself, you can help other people do the same. And that is why self-improvement is not selfish. So many people see self-improvement as something that is this super selfish concept of where you're just like basically like looking at yourself in the mirror and jerking off. It's not like that at all. I have been able to help members of my family who are out of shape. My grandpa right here, I've been able to know how much protein he needs to eat for him to be able to be healthy. And I can monitor what foods he's eating. I know exactly how much protein the foods he's eating likely has because I've tracked my macros for so long. My sister, she was out of shape. I myself was out of shape as a kid. I've been able to provide my sister with proper nutrition uptake. I've been able to motivate her to go to the gym and teach her how to get in better shape. And because of all of this selfish improvement that I did, I've been able to help clients. I've got 3 clients right now that I'm helping get in better shape, build better habits, and build self-confidence. And I've been able to help my sister get into better shape. I've been able to help my grandparents be more active and think about healthier choices that they're making. And all of this stemmed from, first, my heartbreak, but second of all, from putting that energy from the heartbreak into myself. And now I can actually provide something of value to the people around me. And there's so many people who are like, oh, well, the social constructs of a man needing to provide is so yada, yada, yada. Dude, I think this stuff is ingrained in our fucking bones. Because I felt useless when I was a fucking lazy stoner eating like shit, doing nothing every single weekend except smoking weed. And now that I have worked to build myself up, to instill discipline, to show myself love, I'm now able to provide for my family. And I don't quite have the money that I want to have yet. But being able to help your family members become healthier because you know how to get healthier yourself is fucking priceless, man. You know, in a capitalist society, when everyone just prioritizes money and all of these things like McLarens and all these material possessions, it is the relationships around you that matter the most. And when you can use that energy from your heartbreak to build yourself up, to then disperse positive energy to those around you and to help them with the issues that you have gone through, that you have overcame, that makes you valuable because you are a helping hand for these people to becoming better in their own life. You are a helping hand for these people to become healthier, a helping hand for these people to live their life in a way that they deem satisfactory. And that, to me, is why self-improvement and heartbreak before self-improvement might be the best thing that will ever happen to you as a young man. To have something that's so great and to have it snatched away from you is a horrible feeling. And it's one that I didn't get over for probably 4 years. And I just now could probably say I'm over the heartbreak that I experienced when I was 16. But looking back, I have grown so much as a result from it. And that is why it's important to just trust the process and realize that that law of compensation, that every low will have an equal or even higher high, it's so important to have faith on. Because it will come. And if you suffer today, there's going to be a better tomorrow. And that's something that is the most important lesson I learned from my heartbreak. I'm kind of rambling on at this point, but I hope you guys got some value from it. If you guys want to check out my coaching program, I've got my Instagram in my bio. I can only probably help out about 3 more people before I'm completely overloaded and I won't be able to actually help people how I want to help them. So if you want to look at my YouTube bio, check that out. I don't want people who aren't committed to improving, so I don't want to put it in my YouTube description because I don't want to make it easier for people to... I don't want to make it easier for people who aren't as committed to get into it. If that makes sense. But yeah, I hope you've gathered some value from this video. And I hope that if you got heartbroken, just know that there's better things on the way, my brother. This world is very vast. Very, very vast. I'm only 20 and I've learned that already. There's so many things, so many hidden blessings that you don't even realize are there. So, if you like stuff like this, leave a comment. Subscribe if you could. Hit up my Instagram. I've got more kind of short form brain rot content where I just kind of talk about what you need to be doing to build up your self-discipline. And yeah, I'll see y'all whenever.